Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Pace, and welcome back. If you're already a subscriber to the show, if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe so you can see more great interviews, including the one coming at you right now. Returning to the show is now a lightweight. I almost called him a welterweight pro fighter, a lightweight pro fighter with a 2-1 pro record. Tom Kizer. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Luke. Always good to be here.
Oh, it's always great having you on the show. Thanks for making time. I know you've been busy. You're training for this big fight. You have 2 pro wins, both by knockout, both in the first round. One was like 235, one was 243. So right around the just before the 3-minute mark. You had a big knockout in your last fight. First off, what did that feel like? And do you feel like that set up this camp kind of to be on a roll as you get ready for Dalton James? Possibly Jones, I guess.
Jones, yeah.
Can't read my own handwriting. Jones.
It's all good. So the last fight was almost a year ago, right? It's been too long, to be honest. We've had some stuff in between, right? We've had a couple of injuries here, and had obviously a trip to Thailand, to study a little bit, and that went swimmingly well. Had a lot of improvement on that trip, right? We've come back and gotten to utilize already. Had, let's see, a little bit of rough time getting kind of situated here in Pittsburgh, right? I've moved up here to have better access to my training facilities and training partners. I'm out of the mat factory now. And yeah, and this will be the first time testing the waters at 155, but I think that is much more of a natural weight class for me, right? At 170 I just wasn't cutting any weight, right? I was always very strong for my size, so it didn't seem like it mattered too much. But once you start getting into the higher, like the better shows, those 170s are big. And strength wise is one thing, right? I could compete with them strength wise, but just the sheer size and their frames of their bodies just gave them a little bit of an advantage that I would love to have at lightweight. Things with this cut are already going pretty well. I feel really good. My body feels fantastic. And the weight is like sitting pretty much right where we want it. I don't think it's going to be a very hard cut. But I am going to probably look pretty cut up, especially in comparison to my other fights.
Well, you always looked like a guy that had a lot of muscle tone, at least from what I remember you fighting. You fought for the for 247 as an amateur, and I remember how you looked there. So I think welterweight now down to lightweight is super exciting. Big news. So congratulations on the life change. You'd always been a Morgantown guy, and so you being up in Pittsburgh at the Mat Factory, obviously that is fantastic. I'm guessing you were already cross training at the Mat Factory to know that that's where you wanted to go. Okay. And so for you, 247, the first ever Hall of Famer was the legendary coach out of the Mat Factory, Isaac Greeley. What's it like training under him? And who are your main sparring partners? I know Chris Dempsey's a big coach, big sparring partner. Of course, he's a little bit on the bigger side. So who do you mainly work with at the Mat Factory? I'm guessing the general, but you fill me in.
You were right about that, right? So I was even living with Justin and Carly for about a month, right when I initially got up here. They've been super cool. Everybody at the Mat Factory, by the way, has been super awesome with trying to make me feel at home and help with anything that they can. The community there is really like one of the biggest things that drew me in. And Isaac is the head of that and leads by example. The first time that I ever met him, I could tell this was somebody that had my respect kind of right off the bat. And he continued to earn it every day that I've known him. Right, like that dude can just about do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. Justin and I are right around the same size, right? He's a decent size 145, and has a little bit more experience up here with everything, and is just kind of folding me right in. Right, everything has gone like really well and like smoothly with my transition up here because I have been driving up, every weekend, sometimes twice a weekend for a long time now from Morgantown. I decided that was just putting too many miles on the vehicle for one thing, There's not that much opportunity right in West Virginia. I came up here and immediately kind of got a little bit of a better job and in a better situation
Good.
doing kind of what I want to do. And it's going well, right? Like I said, the trip to Thailand was great, and I learned a ton being there. Um, and it's really, I think that was kind of the key to the next level, right? Is that takes me from being a wrestler to being a very well-rounded fighter, right? Like I never thought that I was going to be a huge striker, but obviously, my first two pro wins are both by first round knockout, um, and we're trying to kind of keep that going. Right, is like clearly I've got the kind of touch of death, I guess, and I'm not out really hunting for knockouts. I'm just hunting for whatever's there. Um, and if I can touch them and put them to sleep, then I'm going to. Right, but that doesn't work, then the grappling match it is.
Yeah.
Think that's I'm going to be ready wherever this goes. More than ready, right? Because the guys, the Mat Factory, they don't let you rest, and Patton doesn't either, right? Especially when he gets, ready, is getting ready for a fight and it's coming up, he starts getting a little mean, right? And I do too, which I love it, which is why we're just great training partners together. Um, you know, I can't say enough good things about all the guys at the factory, and Patton in particular.
And obviously, the Man Factory is a great spot for you. I think that's wonderful. Justin Patton, I think this is a record he's proud of. At least I appreciate him. He's been on the show more than anybody else. Ethan the Wolverine Goss is right there. He's been on the show, this show a bunch as well. The legendary double champ that you, of course, know. But yeah, Justin Patton's just an incredible guy. Talk a little bit more about Thailand. How long were you there? Were you on? What gym did you train out of? Because I know like Thailand obviously is known for its Muay Thai. There's different gyms that have different focuses. And did you spar a lot? Did you have a fight every once in a while? A fighter go over there and they slap together fights in a much faster way than we do here. They put together fights quite often. So kind of summarize the whole your whole trip to Thailand.
It was rough goings. I went there completely solo, right? I essentially found out that I was going to be able to have enough wiggle room to do the trip, and just immediately started planning it, and everything took off, and I just never looked back with it. Um, um, as far as training went, it was every day, 2 days. I think I had like 3 days that they were like cultural days, right? But I was there for Muay Thai. I was in Phuket the whole time. I'd planned it out kind of just as the bare bones of what I could afford. I was at Bang Tao because Bang Tao has MMA as well.
Oh,
And so town also this little gym called Bang Tong, which is right around the corner. And so I do most of my Muay Thai really at Bang Tong, and then my MMA stuff at Bang Tao at the big gym. They have a couple of trainers down there. They're real cool guys. The brothers that run the place, and then Brad Riddle is down there as a UFC guy. Wai Zhang was down there a bunch of times. Of course, she had her own posse with her to do things, but I got to get good work in with a lot of people, and really flesh out my striking. I'm a lot more comfortable in that area than I've ever been. Both with attacking, defending, and just reading. Right, what's going on is everything feels really good, right? And to have that on top of the wrestling, I think is just a dangerous thing.
it is. It is a dangerous thing, and I think that also not only for you was a great trip, but I always want MMA Fancast to be educational, particularly for up and coming fighters. You're a pro fighter with a winning record, 2-1. So if somebody's watching this and it works, like you said, you just had the opportunity to go. You kind of have to pull that trigger and go when you could make it work. And then to be smart about where everybody can tailor a Thailand trip themselves, whether it's a certain gym. In your case, you wanted a gym that also has an MMA component. Some of the gyms have no MMA whatsoever, which is again fine if that's what you're looking for. So I think clearly you made it work for what you needed it to do, and glad that you're more comfortable, because I personally have seen you on the Rampage. I was there at your pro debut down in Morgantown, where you got to make your pro debut, 2 years ago, maybe. Um, and I, saw that great knockout. So really overall, just exciting to see you. It's fun to add you to an official Pittsburgh fighter, but realistically, Morgantown has always been somewhat Pittsburgh. Like it's always been somewhat a Pittsburgh area. And I don't know, were you training with Bat Queen Cheyenne Hall when she was down living in Morgantown? Because she several years ago did the same transition,
Mhm.
got a different job up in Pittsburgh, transferred up to Pittsburgh, and then from Morgantown, where she got her start, and then of course has been training out of the Mat Factory.
hmm Shy and I knew each other pretty well. In fact, she's one of the reasons that I made it up here,
All
right?
right.
Is when I first started coming to Pittsburgh, was initially just to spar at Stouts. That was because she invited me, right? She was the only person that I knew. Um, and really the only reason that I felt comfortable coming up here was because she was cool and said, like, hey, he's cool too. Let him spar up here and he's a good partner. And that, initially was a huge resource, right? Just getting to come and get all those different looks sparring, because that's something that West Virginia does not have. Is a lot of people, right? You don't get to have that experience. Um, and then I met Isaac independently of her, right? I knew that she was with the Mat Factory, but I didn't really know anything about the Mat Factory at that point. But I met Isaac at Lake Harmony, right? So I think that was my last amateur fight. It was either last or second to last. I think it might be the last. Anyways,
Your
but he
last
had a
amateur fight was against Julian Reza,
red.
and
Yep,
I do have to
that
make
was
a correction because I'm looking at Tapology. I actually got to call your action for your pro debut. I was wrong. I saw you fight in Morgantown, but your pro debut was for 247. And so I called the action against Damone Hawkins. It was actually a rematch, as you'll remember, against a guy that you had fought for 247 as an amateur. So I misremembered. I've seen you fight outside of 247. It's great to have you back inside the cage of 247, but your pro debut was actually for 247. And I was cage side call the action. Sorry to not to misremember that, but keep going.
all good. Um, yeah, so meeting Isaac, I met Isaac
Yep.
at Lake Harmony, right? At that fight. That was for Maverick, right? And Willow Morton was his fighter for that one. And I can't remember what was it exactly that happened. Somebody came to us and asked my coach, Mike Drescher, if he could do the tape for Willow's hands. Mike, for some, not for some reason, because he's good at it, because he studies, Mike is really, really good at wrapping hands. Just about every show we fought on, the commissioner or somebody has come by and complimented him on his taping job. Um, and he does it perfectly for me, exactly what I want for MMA. He doesn't break it up too much. Like I still have really good mobility and protection for my hands. But they had they had gotten one of Willow's hands done well, and then the commission had come back and said that one's not good. You got to redo that. And I guess I can't remember exactly who it was because it wasn't Isaac, but somebody else came up to us and said, "Hey, look, I can see what you're doing and that you clearly know how to do this. Could you please come do our fighter's hand?" And so he went to do that and got talking to Isaac and found out, that we're kind of in the same neighborhood just about. And then, I had the fight and I won it. I spent, 3 rounds kind of kicking Julian Reza around. And the funny thing is, I actually broke my shin warming up for that fight, probably about 20 minutes before it.
What?
Yeah, so I missed I was warming up with Mike and I missed a kick on his pad because he stepped right when he did it, and I slung it in there pretty quick. And I remember my shin kind of ricocheting off of the top of his shin, like close to his knee, like the real solid part. Um, I felt like stubbing my toe, like I was just waiting for the pain to come. Like, oh, hang on, it's gonna be here. This is gonna hurt really bad, and it didn't. It just never showed up. But about 10 minutes later, my legs started aching bad, um, to the point where I took a step and I knew I was like, oh man, I jacked myself up real good. Um, and I remember talking to Mike about it and asking him, It's like, hey man, like you were that missed kick. It was like I think that did some damage. And he said, well, let's take a look at it. And I pulled my pants down to show him it was like the top of my, or I guess middle of my shin, and there was just a flat line across of it where everything below it was bruised already. It had only been like 15 minutes. And he looked at it and I looked at it. We both kind of knew exactly what happens. Like bruises don't show up like that unless you crack a bone. Um, he said, well, what do you want to do? I said, we drove all the way out here. We're not going home. Right. Um, so we had the fight and I won. I was able to, and that was my left leg, right, which is a big weapon for me, right? That's my power leg, being southpaw, and so I could only use it once in that fight, and so I scored a really good body shot, body kick with him, but it hurt so bad to do it that I couldn't chase him down, right? Like I hit him in the body, and he kind of went backwards and tried to hollow out and cover up his belly some. But I'm trying to chase him down. I couldn't really do it, so that was the only time that I used that kick during the whole fight, was because it just hurt too much. But after that, after I got done with that, Isaac was at the social afterwards, and we got to talking, and he invited me up and said, "Hey man, you need to start coming to the Mat Factory. Like you can make us better, and we can definitely make you better." And the story kind of wrote itself, man. Like I've been going ever since, and have made friends with everybody up here, and have just kind of got been enveloped into the fold.
Wow, that is beautiful, and really shows that you have that. And that was the last amateur fight, so it really shows that you have that fighter's mindset. Glad your shin healed up, and now you're at the pro level. Let's talk specifically about Dalton Jones. Now I got his last name right, my scribble corrected. Jones, when you scribble it badly, can look like James. But anyhow, what are your thoughts on him as an opponent? I think you kind of predicted a knockout because you said you want to keep your knockout streak going. So, kind of, what's your prediction? What are your thoughts on your fight? June 29th, Brawl in the Berg 22, the evening show. It's a doubleheader show. You're in the evening.
Yeah. So just going forward for any of my fights, Luke, is I'm not trying to go to decision ever, right? I don't want the judges to be around, and I don't want them to even have the option to make a bad decision on it, right? Is one way or another, I'm here to finish fights, right? And all of my pro fights have been finishes, including my 2 first round KOs. And that's not necessarily what we're hunting for, is another knockout. It would be awesome to have, three first round knockouts. But we're looking for a finish, right? And that's how the fight is going to go. I'm not looking to outpoint anybody, right? Is we're looking to put them down and get the work done.
Well, that's a great mindset to have. Great game plan. I can't wait to see you. You've always been really fun to watch, and you're the former welterweight amateur champ for 247. When you fought Damone Hawkins the first time, it was for an amateur belt. So it's cool to continue to see you develop and be back fighting for 247. That card is absolutely stacked, as you well know. And your buddy now and teammate and training partner, Justin General Patton, is the co-main event. So it's always kind of a Mat Factory takeover at some of those events. So, but extra special to have you within the Mat Factory fold. Thanks so much for coming on the show. It's always been fun anytime I can have Tom Kizer on the show. This is Luke Payson with Tom. Thanks so much. Can't wait. People need to get their tickets for 247fighting.com for the 21.5 fight, which is the morning. Actually, it's a noon fight. And your fight, which is 22. Give Tom credit. That way he gets credit for you buying tickets. Thanks so much, Tom.
Thank you, Luke. Always good to be here, man.
Always good to have you on. Take care. Can't wait to see you on the 29th.
Hell yeah. Thank you, man.
You got it, brother.